True living Africa. True living Africa.
Hello, Africa, and welcome to your favorite wellness podcast, True Living Africa. We are here in the studio of Africa Business Radio live in Lagos, and I am Oyin Talabi.
I am Uyok Hansen, and we are your wellness coaches.
Yes.
We are here to support you on your journey to stay well.
Exactly. So Africa, I hope that you are staying well, because we are trying to stay well too. So today we have an interesting topic, and one that is very, very relevant because the lockdowns is being lifted across the world, really, and the lockdown is being lifted across the world, and we have to brace ourselves.
Absolutely.
Especially because in Africa, we're in community transmission phase. So today we're going to be talking about face masks.
Right. To wear or not to wear.
Exactly. Face masks to wear or not to wear.
This is the question.
That's a big question. And we're going to be answering it today on True Living. So follow us on africabusinessradio.com. And then we're also on Twitter, we're on Facebook, Instagram, all as Africa Business Radio. We also have an Instagram page called True Living Africa, so follow us on that. So digging in, face masks. So we've all been hearing that to go out now, we need to basically just arm ourselves with all the strategies that World Health Organization has given us. So wear your face mask, practice social distancing, wash your hands, sneeze into your elbow, and all of that. So we've been doing that throughout this whole lockdown. But now that we've been let loose to go back into post-COVID world and nobody knows what to expect, one of the regulations, particularly in Nigeria, is that you have to wear a mask.
Especially
anytime
when you're
in
outdoors.
public.
Yes.
So yes, that makes sense. It makes sense to wear a mask. Cover your nose, cover your mouth. So if you have a cough, if you have a cold, if you have COVID, you're keeping it to yourself. It limits transmission. It makes sense. However, how safe are those masks? Have you been wearing a mask?
Right. So with the mask thing, initially it seemed like, okay, is this going to be possible? Especially when there weren't even any masks to kind of buy.
Yes.
And then we got into the, homemade masks. Which we weren't even sure, were those masks effective? Were they not effective? And then, WHO said, a bandana is just as good. And so we all took to...
It raises all kind of questions, really, because, so there are three main types of masks.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you say that there was a scarcity of masks, yes, because most people were going for the surgical mask.
That's right.
And also, obviously, the healthcare workers needed that, and there was now this scarcity of it. And then we now have there's the N series of masks.
The N95.
So N95, N99, and what the N95, N99 basically means is that the rate that the particles of the fabric is so small that it prevents 99% of microorganisms
from
getting in. So if it's N99, so it's 99%. If it's N95,
95%.
It's 95%. So that's great. And then we now have the cloth mask as well, which
made by our humble, fashion designers.
My mother the other day was making masks.
Right.
So, yes. So everybody's going in and finding their fabric and cutting it. Also because the N series masks are expensive.
Right.
I mean, one is about, in Nigeria, one is about 1,800 naira for one mask.
Exactly.
And these masks, you're not necessarily supposed to reuse them. They're one-time uses. And that's the thing with the surgical mask as well. So you see a lot of people with the surgical mask, and you repeat the same mask, especially when it becomes very scarce. Then the cloth mask, the fabric that the cloth is made from,
right,
of the cloth itself.
Yeah, our Ankaras and our
exactly. So if the fabric, if it's not a closely knit fabric, then particles can still come in and out.
Right.
But it's still reduced.
Right.
So it's not the same as when you're freestyling, no mask whatsoever. However, and so it makes sense to at least still cover up. You still reduce the amount. If, let's say, the N9 series, the N series is 95%. With your cloth mask, you have about 50%. But it still gives you some kind of comfort. It gives the person around you some kind of comfort. However, how safe?
How safe
are there? Because that raises other issues. So now I had to wear my mask. I had to go to the bank. And I had to wear my mask.
Okay.
And, drove there, didn't wear a mask. Okay, so I just have to plug this in. Guys that you're in your car driving and you're wearing a mask by yourself.
Right.
I find that a little weird.
Right.
But that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But I got to the bank and I had to wear my mask to get in. And I could hardly breathe. This was just the short walk from the car to the banking hall. Yeah. I could hardly breathe. And so I remembered, it made me think about the guys that I see exercising with their masks. So they're going for walks, you're exercising. Because what the mask does, apart from it's keeping particles coming in and out, it's obstructing airflow.
Right.
So your oxygen intake is reduced.
Right.
And then your carbon dioxide that is supposed to be flowing out is contained. So you're basically inhaling that as well.
Yeah.
That's going back in.
So did you remember the stories about the 3 different people who were working out and fainted on the streets? I think one of them was
in the papers.
China and all of that. So it then sort of raised issues about the medical condition. One of the Nigerian doctors called, hypoxia. And basically that's when you're exercising or you're exerting yourself, carbon dioxide starts to recycle within the mask and it intoxicates the user.
Exactly.
When moving or exerting themselves, of course. And then this causes dizziness. Or
lightheadedness,
yes. Or lightheadedness.
And if you have an underlying health issue like asthma or even COVID, because that's attacking your respiratory system.
Absolutely.
If you're having even heart problem.
People who have COVID and who wear masks persistently, the danger of doing that even with the condition is that it even pushes the viral load deeper, further,
into your system.
Into your lungs, exactly. So those are one of the, that's one of the issues with not being able to manage your mask wearing properly.
Yeah.
With exercise, we see a lot of people jogging with masks on.
Yeah.
And there are different schools of thought. One of them is like, if you feel all right, then fine. But if you have things like, COPD, the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or asthma, like you said before, or even COVID, then you should not be wearing a mask when you're exerting yourself. You should only wear a mask when you're in close contact with other people.
I personally don't think that we should be wearing masks when we're exercising.
No,
whether you're
yeah.
healthy or you have an underlying disease or not. Right. I don't actually think that you should. Obviously, if you have to exercise with in close proximity, then maybe don't exercise in close proximity. Just don't.
Because wearing a mask is so dangerous.
Yes, it's so dangerous because you might think you're okay and then
you just black out.
Yeah.
Because really when you exercise, you're actually
you're elevating your heart rate increases. Yes. So your body is needing more oxygen.
Right.
And so if you're obstructing the flow of oxygen, you're putting unnecessary pressure on your lungs and on your heart.
Yeah. So with that oxygen deficiency, when the tissues are starved for oxygen, that is when you begin to have that loss of reflexes and loss of consciousness.
More lactic acid is released into your muscles. So it's just, if you weigh both, it's like, why?
It's just not worth it.
It's
not worth it. It's better that you actually, if you're going to work out at home, where you don't have to wear a mask, put on a video or do something, jumping jacks, jump ropes, suicide sprints from one end of your living room to the other. But to go out with the mask on and attempt to sprint
do
or
high
jog,
intensity things like that.
Right.
Because even walking, if you're walking from your house to the bus stop, even that alone can elevate your heart rate.
That's right.
And increase your need for oxygen. So if you're wearing a mask, even doing that, you're already at risk. And also, I think that's the main takeaway, as much as we've been advised to wear it, other things that we should pay attention to is that you can't wear your mask 24/7. You shouldn't.
You really shouldn't.
And also take breaks.
Right.
From wearing it.
Right. And also be conscious of where you're taking it. Yeah. So maybe we're speaking to people who, for instance, have to wear masks when they're at work and they're sort of dealing with people, like, for instance, the bank tellers or the supermarket tellers and so forth. So in cases like that, they do need to schedule breaks where they take their masks off, because those masks
breathe in properly
can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens when you wear a mask is that the breathing sort of takes the air. When you breathe out, the air gets into your eyes. So it tends to mess with your eyes a little bit. And then for those who wear glasses, then those who wear glasses, it clouds up. And so what happens when, the the CO2 starts to mess with your eyes is that there's a tendency to touch your eyes. You see, you're then going to want to itch and rub your eyes and so forth. So we have to be careful and be conscious of that, especially when we have to wear the mask for the duration that we are at work or we are dealing with customers and so forth. And, you also have to find the right fit.
Find the right fit.
The right fit. Some people wear masks that are
too big.
Yes, or too tight even.
Too tight, yeah.
Right? Too big or too tight. And it's good for it to be snug, but you have to have room to breathe inside that mask. Because once it's uncomfortable, once it's tight like that, it's not sustainable for you to wear it for any, length of time.
Make sure you also wash your hands before you handle your mask. Make sure that you're wearing clean masks. So even if you're using the cloth ones, you have to wash it. You can only wear it once. So you wear it for today. You have to wash it before you wear it tomorrow. So if anything, everybody should have at least 2 to 3 masks.
Wash and wear.
So that you can, while one is drying, wear one, wash one. I like that. Yeah. So wash and wear. So we need to put that into practice as well. Because I must admit that I was a culprit with that.
I know there are lots of people, so what happens? So what happens is that people tend to put the mask on, majority, I dare say, or people who put on their mask, put it on as a protocol.
Yeah.
You know how you get to a store and they say, let's check, have you got a mask on? Please make sure you've got your mask on and so forth. So then people tend to leave their masks in their cars.
Exactly.
So they put it there just so that they don't forget to take their mask. And what happens is that when they finish from the store and everywhere else they've gone to, the mask ends up back in the car, in the glove compartment,
so it's also picking up germs from there,
or it just never gets out to be washed. You see,
True.
And so you just go with it, and the next day you go out. Oh, oops! So there goes my mask. Let me just put it. So it defeats the purpose of the masks when we do that kind of stuff. It just, completely defeats it, because those microorganisms we're talking about have sort of gotten to the external part of the mask, and they're just still there, and then there's a risk of reinfection when we just keep wearing the mask over and over. So mask management is a huge thing when we talk about to wear or not to wear, because while there are different schools of thoughts about the safety and even the scientific studies that are not
ongoing.
We're not quite sure. But while the jury is still out, there's some really basic, simple protocols that when you take your mask off, put it in the,
put it in the wash.
Yeah, put it in the wash. Make sure you wash it. Make sure it's clean. Otherwise, we're just not doing ourselves any favors.
Yeah. And when another thing that we do a lot is when we're now in a place that we deem as safe and we take off our mask, we just sort of pull it down your face. I've seen some people put it behind their head, and yes, that's convenient but not necessarily safe, because remember, when you wear your mask, there's almost like a sauna effect that is going on in that area from all the heat and humidity that's building up there. So by the time you're pulling it down like that, you're also packing germs. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
So if anything, if you're in a safe place, take it off.
Right.
Fold it to the side. And then when you need to wear it again, put it fully back on.
Mm-hmm.
And all, just so that we're staying as clean and safe as possible.
We're not reinfecting ourselves.
So main takeaways for today is don't exercise with your mask on.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do anything that is going to elevate your heart rate and your need for oxygen, then practice social distancing as much as possible. And don't exercise. It's just not worth it. Right. So if your trainer comes along and says, wear your mask, no. Practice social distancing.
Stay 6 feet apart.
If anything.
If you must.
If you must exercise with a person. If you must go to the gym. But then most gyms are not open at this point in time. But even as they open, those are the kind of protocols that they will have to put in place where everybody socially is distanced or paced out properly for people to exercise well.
Yeah. And the funny thing about wearing a mask is that in a sense it also defeats social distancing because you can't really hear what the person is saying who's wearing a mask, can you? So there's a tendency to sort of unconsciously lean in to listen and to hear what.
But technically, you're protected from whatever particles or germs that would be flowing from them. But then you now have to contend with keeping your hands clean.
Right.
As well. To make sure that, because I think a lot of us haven't forgotten we're shaking hands. I've been shaking hands. I've completely forgotten the elbow bump.
Wow. And I thought that elbow bump was here to stay. The way it went.
Not with me. Apparently not with me.
I honestly thought it had gotten into our social psyche at this point. It's so interesting how we came from a place where it was weird not to, those social niceties that we thought we couldn't live without. And now it's totally normal and it's not disrespectful at all.
Everybody just
to
goes
not shake.
But then also a lot of countries that have had their lockdown lifted way before us. So like China and co, the research that was coming out of that was that people were skeptical and practiced all this safety measures for about max 2 weeks.
Right.
After that, people forgot all about social distancing.
Yeah.
The masks were not being worn unless they were very enforced and unless there was someone there enforcing it. But that people just sort of went back, completely forgot about what had just happened, what everybody had been through for like 3 months, and just sort of went back. So it shows you that we're really social animals, creatures, and we really need that bonding and social contact. But
and if we perish, we perish.
We perish. But we have to stay safe.
Yeah, we do have to stay safe.
So thank you guys for listening, for joining in with us today. Our main takeaways is don't exercise with your mask on. Stay safe. Practice social distancing. And
practice proper face mask management.
Don't
leave it dirty. Don't share it. Don't rewear it if you haven't washed it. Yeah.
And dispose of it properly.
And make sure that if you have an underlying condition, be careful when you wear your mask.
Be careful when you do anything. So even be careful when you're exercising at all if you have an underlying
respiratory condition.
Exactly. And then definitely do not exercise with a mask on. So thank you, Africa, for joining us today. We are sure that you learned one thing or the other because we learned a lot as we were researching this. So thank you all for joining us. Follow us on africabusinessradio.com. Same name on Instagram and Twitter, Africa Business Radio. And we are also True Living Africa on Instagram. So until next time, I'm Oyin. Thank you for joining in. And
I'm Uyok. Thanks for listening.
True living Africa. True living Africa.